Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today is December 5th, 2021. Welcome to Wall Street to Bay Street, Sunday Chai Share Portfolio Canada. My name is Nadeem Mia.
And my name is Shamil. Get your chai ready and let's get into the swing of things. So Nadeem, pretty volatile week in the market this week. A lot of news about the Omicron variant, and there's been a lot of news flow coming from that, and then obviously it's had a big impact on the markets. So can you maybe talk us through that and kind of what's been going on?
Sure. I mean, this was a wild week in all markets, really. Starting first with the Omicron, basically it started really last Friday, after Black Friday, really, where we got news that there was this new variant, the Omicron variant, and it resulted in a pretty big sell-off. We saw oil significantly sell off there. And a lot of the news is kind of just centered around, okay, well, travel restrictions, there could be a possible lockdown, another wave of cases and whatnot. So it obviously creeped in a lot of fear in the markets, and we did see a sell-off. However, over the last weekend, the market did kind of bounce back a little bit as they felt that, maybe this wasn't as big of a threat. But then, the news flow was very fresh, and we were still in the market, and I guess us in general, we're just still trying to figure this thing out. But on Tuesday, the CEO of Moderna, made some comments in the Financial Times where he kind of hinted that the efficacy of their vaccine, was going to be lower on the new variant. So that caused the market to actually kind of sell off. However, it was just a little bit of back and forth news on the Omicron, ultimately, it's still to be determined. But it does look like, unlike the previous variants that we've had, this could be something that the market can digest and live through.
Hopefully it's not too serious, and it'll just be a phase we go through. So the next thing is, we saw Jerome Powell had made some comments this week. So can you maybe walk us through that as well?
Yeah, so Jerome Powell did face a Senate panel this week, and it was a pretty interesting, I guess, panel, because it was a major, I guess, the tone or the wording has significantly changed. And the funny thing is, he got the nomination from Biden, and all of a sudden, there was a pivot in what he was saying, and the pivot really started where he said, I quote, "It's a good time to retire that word," and that word was actually transitory, and try to explain more clearly what we mean by that. So that got the market thinking that maybe Powell, who previously was in a transitory camp, is getting off of that, and he may have hinted that this inflation could be longer than expected. And they also made comments on tapering, where he said, I quote, "It is appropriate, I think, for us to discuss at our next meeting, which is in a couple of weeks, whether it will be appropriate to wrap up our purchases a few months earlier," unquote. So again, this goes back to tapering, which we did, I guess, a couple of weeks back. And what he's saying basically here is that it looks like they might actually stop the purchases a few months earlier, where previously the market was expecting it to be somewhere in the mid 2022. So in general, this did, spook the markets once again. It did cause quite a bit of selling as the fear of inflation kind of, it crept back into the market and resulted in a lot of volatility.
Perfect. And the last piece of news we have was that on Friday, DD, the U.S. listed ADR, we found out it's getting delisted. So can you maybe walk us through what's going on in that situation as well?
Yeah, so I mean, this was an IPO that came out early this year, and not to the liking of the Chinese government, and ultimately, they are getting delisted in the U.S. and they're relisting it back in Hong Kong. However, the bigger picture, as far as the impact of the market goes, is that it did result in quite a bit of volatility specific to the Chinese ADRs. We did see, there's an index out there called the Nasdaq Golden Dragon Index, and it's an index that is composed of a lot of these Chinese ADRs, and that index was actually down about over 9% on Friday alone. just because, again, fear kind of creeping in that, a company is getting delisted from the market. And as an example, Alibaba, which I guess is a company that most people might be familiar with, that stock was also down over about 8%. So, ultimately, you've had a string of kind of bad news, a string of fears. Some of these Chinese ADRs, and a lot of them were technology stocks, that selling kind of, I would say, spilled over into other technology names as well. On Friday, the Nasdaq was down about 1.9%, on Friday alone. So I would say, those were three major headlines that really kind of impacted the markets this week.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Nadeem, for the information. And as always, thank you guys for joining us. And if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the comment section below. So from Nadeem and I, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, also, we do have a webinar coming up this week and on the 15th. So just a little bit of a plug there. Please do subscribe or register yourself for that.
Yeah, it'll be in the bio for our social media pages. So
all right. So good. All right.
Nadeem, Portfolio Manager, registered as an advising representative, and Shamil Devji, Financial Advisor, registered as a dealing representative with Sharia Portfolio Canada Inc., a portfolio manager registered in the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta. Their opinions and statements expressed in this show are their personal opinions and do not necessarily reflect those of Sharia Portfolio. They are effective as of the date of this broadcast only and are subject to change. This discussion is for general information purposes only and is not investment advice.